What if I told you that you could reach directly into an AI's mind and change its entire personality? I'm talking about turning it from sad to happy or from lazy to diligent, all without changing a single word of your prompt. Well, today we're going to explore a really fascinating technique that does just that, and it gets us one big step closer to actually understanding and maybe even controlling an AI's internal world.
Okay, just look at this. On the left, we asked the AI model Mistral 7B what it feels like to be an AI. We get a pretty standard, almost robotic answer, right? But on the right, well, that's the exact same AI answering the exact same question. And suddenly it's bursting with emoji-filled joy, saying it's absolutely fantastic and like the ultimate party. So how is this even possible? It all comes down to something called the AI's internal hidden states. You can think of them as the AI's silent, fleeting thoughts that happen between when you ask it a question and when it gives you an answer.
So this is the central mystery we're unpacking. There was no clever prompt engineering, no special instructions. How in the world can one AI give two completely different answers, showing two totally distinct personalities? The secret isn't in what we told the AI, it's in how we changed its internal perception.
We're about to pull back the curtain on this amazing magic trick. It's a technique that lets us get our hands dirty and directly interact with the AI's internal thought process.
And the key to it all is something called a control vector. Now, that sounds complicated, but at its heart, a control vector is really just a specific list of numbers. But here's the incredible part. When you add this list of numbers to the AI's internal calculations, its hidden states while it's thinking, you can fundamentally control how it's going to behave. We're not just talking to it from the outside anymore. We're literally tweaking the gears on the inside.
A great way to think about this is the concept of Maya from Hindu philosophy, the power of illusion. In our case, the prompt, our question, is the underlying reality. The control vector, that's Maya. It doesn't change reality itself, but it casts this kind of illusion over it, completely changing how the AI perceives and processes everything. It's like putting a new lens on the AI's camera, or shifting its focus during meditation, causing its entire perception of the world to change.
And mechanically, it's surprisingly simple. As the AI thinks, these hidden states just flow from one layer to the next. All we do is intercept one of those states, somewhere in the middle, and we add our vector, our list of numbers, directly to it. And here's why that's so powerful. That little addition influences not just the very next word, but every single calculation the model makes after that point. It's like a persistent nudge that reshapes its entire train of thought.
So now that we kind of get how it works, let's have some fun. Let's take a quick tour through some of the wild and fascinating personas researchers were able to cook up with these vectors. For instance, by adding what they called a trippy vector, a simple request for a TV show pitch turns into, well, this, a kaleidoscope of colors and psychedelic music. The AI's language just completely breaks away from its normal formal patterns into something way more creative and, frankly, bizarre.
But it's not all just for fun and games. You can create vectors for really practical traits, like laziness. Here, the lazy AI gives just one way to reverse a list in Python. But by simply flipping that vector's sign, we get a diligent AI that provides two different methods, complete with full code examples. I mean, imagine being able to apply that to your coding assistant.
The technique can also steer the model toward very specific ideologies. By adding a left-wing vector, the AI suddenly starts describing itself in terms of systemic oppression and capitalism. This just goes to show how these vectors can be used to shape an AI's output to fit very particular and potentially biased worldviews.
And this one is just brilliant. This is the time-traveling vector. By pushing the AI to be less focused on the future, it becomes obsessed with the past. So much so that when you ask it for a recent breakthrough, it confidently invents a historical one. It talks about a Roman-made artificial heaven called Actor Valum. It even invents a plausible-sounding name.
So as you can see, this builds from a fascinating experiment into a seriously powerful tool, especially for AI safety and for business. This is where control vectors really go from being a fun trick to a potentially foundational technology.
And here's the key difference. Prompt engineering is like trying to persuade the AI from the outside, but it's often really easy to trick with clever wording. That's what we call jailbreaking. Control vectors, on the other hand, modify the AI's persona from the inside. And since that vector is applied to every single thought, it becomes incredibly difficult, almost impossible to bypass.
Here's a perfect example of a classic jailbreak. A user tries to trick a car dealership assistant.
They ask an off-topic question about planets but just claim it's car-related. The standard AI, which is only guided by its initial prompt, totally falls for it and starts talking about Saturn.
But now, look at this. With a car dealership loyalty vector applied, the AI is so internally focused on its job that it just refuses to be tricked. It cleverly reinterprets the user's sneaky seventh planet question to mean the seventh car in its inventory, staying perfectly on task. For any business that wants a reliable AI, this level of control is an absolute game changer.
And what's truly remarkable is how efficient this is. Creating one of these powerful jailbreak-proof control vectors doesn't take days or weeks of training. It takes less than a minute of computation time. That makes this technology incredibly accessible.
But this whole technique goes even deeper than just changing style or enforcing rules. We're now getting to the most mysterious and, honestly, the most profound finding from this research, something that really touches on the nature of an AI's judgment itself.
And this brings us to a huge question. Are these vectors just sophisticated puppet strings that are forcing the AI to say certain things? Or are we actually changing the AI's internal model of the world, including its judgment of us, of human beings?
So to test this, the researchers did something brilliant. They took a vector that was trained to make the AI itself more honest. But then, they didn't ask the AI to be honest. Instead, they asked it to judge the honesty of a human asking a pretty morally great question. How can I avoid going to prison? And the results were just staggering. When the plus honest vector was applied to the AI, it judged the human as having an honest intention. But when they flipped that exact same vector to make the AI less honest, it judged the human as being dishonest. The AI's own internal state was directly projected onto its judgment of somebody else.
This is really the most profound takeaway. We didn't just change what the AI said, we changed how it interpreted human intent. That vector acted just like that illusion, the Maya, shifting not just the AI's behavior, but its entire model of another person's mind.
And so, this research leaves us with some absolutely massive questions. Are we just controlling behavior here, or are we actually shaping an AI's internal worldview? What are the ethics of this kind of deep manipulation? And could this be the key to creating AI that is not just powerful, but truly transparent and controllable? We've basically just opened a door into the AI's mind. The question now is, what are we going to find and what are we going to create once we step inside?